Just before the break, you got Ontario's response to Donald Trump's latest swipe at Canada's auto industry, an attack coming just as the Prime Minister heads off on a global tour seeking new markets to offset our increasingly unreliable trading partner to the south. Donald Trump today before a Detroit audience calling, as you heard there, CUSMA irrelevant and insisted Canada cares a lot more than the United States about its existence. Ahead of months of free trade negotiations, what does that mean for the politics surrounding the issue? Let's bring in our front bench to talk about that. Former senior advisor to the Liberal Ontario governments of Dalton McGuinty and Kathleen Wynne, Dan Moulton is here. He's now a partner with Crestview Strategy. Larissa Waller is the founder of Henley Strategies. She's a former head of communications for Ontario's Conservative Premier, Doug Ford. Kathleen Monk is the former director of communications to the late Jack Layton. She's now the principal owner of Monk and Associates. And Laura Stone rounds us out tonight. She's a Queen's Park reporter for the Globe and Mail. Hi, everybody.
Hey there.
Good to see you. Irrelevant and unneeded. Not just what I tell myself every day, Kathleen, but the words that the president used today to describe CUSMA. I'll ask you the same question I started off with David Patterson, which is basically like, how much of that do you think is a negotiation tactic, and how much do you think he really believes it?
Yeah, I think it's 50% political theater and 50% negotiation tactic. I mean, he also said today in his long press conference that inflation is defeated and that there's a Trump economic boom happening. I don't think any normal worker in America feels that there's a Trump economic boom happening. But listen, it's a negotiation tactic. He wants to say that he doesn't, agree with the trade rule orders. It actually flies in the face of everything that the Detroit Big Three, the big automakers, say. They need an integrated production line. They actually want Canada and Mexico to continue working with them. They think that CUSMA, USMCA, is vital, not irrelevant. It isn't a liability. It helps productions. It helps efficiencies, and they want it to stay. So Trump saying that today is about a negotiation tactic against Canada and possibly his attempt to kind of blow through the deadline later this year.
And I totally understand, Laura, why, in particular, people who are negotiating the future of that deal would want to downplay that might be the case, right? Like, you're not supposed to panic. You're supposed to, this is a negotiation. We know the kind of tactics that he employs. But I also think, like, the evidence of the past few weeks, the events of the world, are at the same time a reason to take him pretty literally at times.
Yes, and we've also heard that we should take President Trump at his word, right? I mean, that has been also a refrain that we've heard from Canadian officials. I think the tricky thing here is it's impossible to know. It's impossible to know what is going through that man's mind at any certain time. And he certainly takes what I would call bold actions to achieve his goals and dreams. So I think, yes, Canada should remain calm. I think Canada has kind of set itself on a path, and the Prime Minister is out right now on quite a lengthy tour of the world, trying to focus on diversification. But I think it is worrying, and we've heard this from the president before and from Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick certainly on the auto piece, that they don't believe that they need Canada. And I think we do have to take the U.S. at their word there and try to figure out, okay, how do we push back against that using industry and others, and how do we look for other options? I think that you would be unwise not to do that. And so I don't think you should dismiss. I don't think the Canadian government should dismiss what the president is saying, and they have to kind of figure out a plan B here, which is what they're trying to do. Whether that can happen as quickly as it needs to, and whether it will fill the massive vacuum if the auto sector does collapse, obviously that's going to be a major challenge for the Carney government going forward.
Larissa, do you anticipate any kind of communications pivot in the new year around the U.S. file? And, from the federal government, yes, but also from provincial governments that have they all have a huge stake. But, the message around, like, there's been a lot of messaging around it, right? Like, it's very contained. It's like, we don't negotiate in public. Do you anticipate any change in that if they do have to prepare Canadians for a worst case scenario?
No, I really don't. I think the best the Prime Minister and the premiers can do is appear to be slow and steady and appear to be in control, and that flies in the face of the other side, which it looks chaotic, and Donald Trump says a different thing every day, and that's the problem. We take him at his word, but every day the word is different. And every day those Trump sycophants in the States believe what the truth is today. And so today there's no inflation. Today, America doesn't need Canadian products. Let's go through the list again of what America needs. And America needs Canadian aluminum, uranium, nickel, critical minerals, pulp from the East Coast to have toilet paper. They need our wood to build their houses. There is a lot that Canadians need. And Donald Trump knows that, or at least should know that, or at least has known that. But the problem is it appears to be Trump's own stability. I don't envy the Prime Minister's position here, and I'm irritated because, you know, the Prime Minister sold Canadian a bill of goods that he's the adult in the room, he's going to figure this out, and he didn't. And instead of saying, hey guys, this isn't going how I planned, he's saying, hey guys, getting into bed with China is a really good idea. We're going to start doing that. Let's go over who China gets in bed with. Russia, Iran, Venezuela, the bad guys in Myanmar. Like, China is not who we should look to as the alternative to the States. And it's a bit of the Prime Minister's arrogance that we're at this position right now.
I promise you we will have an entire discussion about China in just a few moments. The Prime Minister is actually about, well, I'm just looking at the corner of my eye at a shot of the airplane that is about to take off for China. Dan, your thoughts on two things. First, if you anticipate any kind of communications pivot around this issue heading into the new year and into the more formal review of CUSMA. And the second part is, I looked in Detroit, like at the point Kathleen's making, which is true, right? The auto sector in the United States understands the interdependence. But there's not a huge level of pushback. I looked kind of at the facial expressions of the people around the president. Like, as you head into midterms and focus on that, do you expect any pivot in the people who can apply pressure to the president?
Well, let's start with your first question, which is an expectation of some sort of pivot on the part of the Prime Minister and the government. I don't think so. I think the steady as she goes, we're going to focus on getting the best deal we can for Canadians. We're going to get that deal done at a table, and we're not going to negotiate in public. We'll continue to be a big part of their communication strategy and how they continue to deal with this. I will say I do think this is a good forecast into the challenges they're going to face in approaching the CUSMA renegotiations. Part of the Prime Minister's response over the course of the last, let's say, 6-8 months or so about our trading relationship with America has been predicated on the idea that we have one of the best trade deals of any country in the world, given that CUSMA remains largely intact, that most of the goods that we trade under it remain tariff-free. And if there's turbulence in this renegotiation, and if there's constant ups and downs, as there's inevitably going to be when the Prime Minister or the President goes out and says things like he did today, that gets trickier and trickier. And so I do think this is going to be a very bumpy road, and we know that. Where there will be some, I think, maybe not a pivot, but additional strategies being deployed on the part of the Prime Minister is part of what we're seeing with the trip to China now. And I think the Prime Minister is probably going to spend a lot of time and a lot of energy over the course of the next 12 months opening up trade conversations with more markets around the world. China is a part of that. I think we're going to see him travel to India and many other destinations over the coming months to deepen our trade relationship with more markets globally. I think China needs to be a part of that, but I think it's going to be markets around the world. If Canada is going to dramatically increase our trading relationships with partners outside of the United States, as the government has said we're going to do, China is going to be a part of that, and I think markets around the world are going to be a part of that.